So today I want to get into what I think are the 5 biggest myths or misconceptions about overseeding your cool season lawns or even doing a full renovation. Coming in at number 5 on my list is that you have to overseed every year. I think that's a huge myth. You really only should overseed maybe every 3 to 4 years. If you have a good thick standing turf, it's growing just fine. You don't have a bunch of weed pressure, a bunch of bare spots. There's probably really no need for you to overseed every year. I know me personally, I'm not doing any overseeding this year. Here in the backyard, I renovated this last year. It has some struggles where I'm not going to be overseeding and deal with those in a separate video. But it is still nice and thick grass, and I have no issues with where I feel like I need to overseed it. Now, the front yard, obviously, I just completely renovated in the spring. There's no need to overseed that. I've got a few spots of areas that were damaged from some fungus that I've reseeded a little bit, but as far as a full-blown overseed or anything like that, there's no need. This backyard, maybe in 2 or 3 years I'll do it again. The nice thing with like Kentucky bluegrass is the few bare spots I get from dog spots and things like that, the bluegrass grows right back in. It's nice to introduce new cultivars. It's nice to have some fresh good grass seed in there. But if you just don't have the budget or the time, do you have to do it? No. I would say probably 95% of the people in the cool season area of the country, they don't overseed at all. I mean, look around at your neighbors. Do you see them out there doing it? And a lot of times their lawns look just fine. So I think that's kind of a myth that you need to do it every year. You have to top dress every time you overseed or do a renovation. When you purchase topsoil from, whether it's in a bag or bulk supply or anything like that, there is no legal definition of screened topsoil. So when you look into buying things like that, you need to ask questions. When I did the renovation back here last year and I brought in a couple yards of topsoil to bring my soil level up, I purchased what I was told was screened topsoil. And as I started going through that, I found a lot of garbage, a lot of glass, rocks, things like that. And I questioned the company as to what they actually screened it with. And they couldn't tell me. They just said it's screened. They couldn't tell me what size screen. They couldn't tell me how well it was screened, and I can tell you it wasn't screened very well. Now, I've had a different experience with another company because they do a little bit thorough job. But honestly, if you feel like you need to top dress, compost is actually probably one of the best things you can top dress with. So compost can be finely screened so that you don't have like really big chunks laying on top of the turf. It's easy to work down into your existing turf if you're doing it like in an overseeding. It literally just rake it in, or you can use something like a level lawn to work it in and make it nice and smooth. It's very easy to distribute across the turf. You literally just fling it with a shovel or spread it out with a rake, however you want to do it. The other advantage to compost is that it has a nice balance of macro and micronutrients in it, which generally slow release into the soil and help your existing turf. It also introduces some really good organic matter. So if you're like me and like most people, you have some sort of clay type soil, introducing that organic matter definitely will help with that by introducing looser material, letting it break down over time and working its way into the soil profile. It really does help with that. Now, if you're in a situation where you're doing a full renovation and you don't want to top dress with like soil or don't even have the compost available, you can use something like peat moss. Peat moss is great because it can go on very thin. A 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch is more than enough to cover the seed. So if you want to cover with peat moss, it's great. It helps retain moisture. You can see when you need to water the seed again to keep it moist, because as peat moss starts to dry out, it changes to a lighter color, and it's a good indicator you need to get some water on it. Number 3 on my list is that you have to mechanically aerate every time you overseed or do a renovation. That really can't be further from the truth. Mechanically aerating does have some great advantages. It introduces some more air and helps get water into the soil profile. It loosens up any tension in the soil. But do you absolutely have to do it? No. I've lived in this house for 7 years. I've done several overseedings. I've done 2 full renovations, and I have never mechanically aerated my lawn and have been just fine. There is a big misconception that it has to be done, and I say false. It doesn't have to be done. Is it helpful? It's extremely helpful. Do you have to do it? Do you have to go out and rent some big heavy machine and try and get it home? Most people don't have the truck. Most of you won't even bother to rent it because of that. Or, I mean, you could always pay somebody to come out and mechanically aerate. If you don't want to front that expense, that's fine. But I've had pretty successful overseedings and renovations that have never had to mechanically aerate, just because I don't want to hassle with the machine. So do you absolutely need to mechanically aerate? No, you can get away with it. It does help a little bit with a little bit better germination. But is it going to be a noticeable difference? Probably not. Anyway, so I'll get off of that. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of flack about that one, but I don't agree. I don't think you absolutely have to mechanically aerate every time you overseed or do a renovation. Number 2 on my list is that you have to have expensive equipment to be having a successful overseeding or renovation. You don't need any of that. I see a lot of people that will make suggestions to go out and rent a slit seeder, a mechanical aerator, or they'll think that they have to have some sort of special top dressing machine. You don't need any of that. You need things you probably already have. You need a spreader like you would use for a granular spreader. It can be a hand spreader, it can be a push spreader. You need probably a rake, and that's about it. You really don't need anything expensive. And this one's more on a personal level. People have this myth and misconception in their mind that they can't do it. That can't be further from the truth. You can do it. It's not as difficult as it thinks. It takes a little bit of planning, a little bit of timing, and just some effort. A lot of people tend to shy away from it because they think they can't grow grass. I mean, honestly, grass is pretty easy to grow. You spread it out, you keep it wet, and watch it grow. It's not that difficult. So I think that's a big myth that people have in their minds, is that they can't do it. You certainly can. There's many of us out here that are willing to help you, whether it be through YouTube videos or Facebook groups or Instagram or anything like that. We're here to help if you have questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. I always answer questions on the comments. If I don't know the answer, I'll point you in a direction to somebody that does. It's really not in rocket science. It's not as complicated as people think. So you can do it. If you found this video helpful at all, hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.